going to start our look at Cisco switch security with port security, and it's a feature that you learned about in your CCNA studies. We're going to make sure that it's easy points for you on exam day as well, with several different labs where we're looking at almost really every option of port security, because there aren't that many options, and on top of that, the overall operation of port security is very simple. It's what we have right on the board. You got frames coming in on a port, and the switch asks itself, is this frame from a trusted source? That's it. That's port security. Now, of course, we have a few options we got to know about, but this is what's going on. And, of course, the decision there is, well, how do we decide if it's from a trusted source or not? Well, what we're going to have is a table of secure MAC addresses. And it could just have one secure MAC address in it. It's on a per port level. So one port will have, some secure MAC addresses, another port may have others. And if frames with non-secure source MAC addresses come in on that port, the port takes action ranging from shutting down entirely to just letting you and I know about it. We're going to see all of this in action. We're going to see the tables I was talking about. We're going to set some static MAC addresses, see some dynamic ones, the whole bit. Now, before we do any of that, we have to enable port security, and we're going to do that at the port level with the switch port security command. And we're just going to fool around here with a couple of commands before we actually get into some labs. With switch port security, we have a couple of options there: aging, MAC address maximum, and violation. We're going to see all of those in action. But switch port security by itself is also a legal command, and what it does is actually enables this function or feature on the port. So then, of course, you press enter, and you get rejected. Well, you get rejected here because it says Fast Ethernet 0/1 is a dynamic port. Okay, what do you want for my life? What's that got to do with it? The problem here is that you can only enable port security on a port that has absolutely no chance of becoming a trunk. Not that it's trunking now, that it can't possibly become a trunk port in the future. And we know what that means. We got to make it an access port. Because we could look at the switch, and I believe right now we don't even have any trunks. We have 0 trunks on the switch, but I still have to make that port an access port. So let's go ahead and make that happen. Let's try that again. Switch port, and boy, yeah, that's skipping right there. There we go. Sorry about that. And the VLAN doesn't exist, which is always nice enough to create it for me. And let's try switch port security again now. And we are enabled. You're not going to get a confirm message that says you just enabled port security, but we can confirm it with one of several show commands. A lot of people spend all their time with show port security, and there's nothing wrong with that command, but there are definitely some other show port security options I'll show you in the labs ahead. Right now, though, let's go with show port security. And going from left to right here, secure port, then it's got the number of maximum secure addresses, then the current secure addresses, then security violation and security action. And the key here is, really want to point this out, a lot of people, I should say a lot of people, some people, their eyes go straight to that shutdown, and they say, oh, well, the port is shut down. The port is not shut down. Here, the situation is, this command is just telling you what the security action will be if there is a security violation. But we haven't had any security violations, so far we're good to go. I have a feeling that just might change in the labs ahead, but we're going to stick with that for right now. So let's see, we've got show port security. I'll go ahead and show you a couple of others here, a little advanced work. Here's show port security address. And we can see that it shows you what VLAN it is, the MAC address, the type, the ports, and remaining age in minutes. And we have a dash there, which means probably it's been disabled. Also note that the bottom of both of the outputs, show port security address and show port security, total addresses in system excluding 1 MAC per port, and then max addresses limit in system excluding 1 MAC per port, 6,144. That's a lot of secure addresses. So we're going to come back and see these tables in action as we proceed through some labs. Just want to give you a little feel for the show commands right now. And we have one more I want to show you. It's show port security interface, followed then of course by the interface type. And going from top to bottom, you can see port security is enabled, port status secure and up, which is a great combination. Violation mode is shut down. That is the default. You likely remember that from your NA studies. Aging time of 0 minutes, absolute. Aging type, absolute. We'll go over those when we change the aging types. Maximum MAC addresses of 1, total MAC addresses of 1, configured MAC addresses then is 0, sticky MAC addresses. We've got a lot of address types here. 0. What I like about this command, it shows you the last source MAC address that came in and the VLAN number of it. That's pretty cool. And it also shows you the security violation count. Again, just want to show you those now, and we'll see them in action during our labs as well. Let's go ahead, go back to the port. Switch port security, and look at our options here. And we're actually going to start with maximum, max secure addresses. And you can see the range is 1 through 6,144. And if you're laughing, it's okay. The first time I saw that many max addresses on one port, I kind of laughed too. And the default is 1. Obviously, you can't set it to 0, because if you did, you'd be disabling it. And the key here again, the default is 1. I would not recommend putting 6,144 maximum addresses on a port, but that's the only reason. That's the reason we have the maximum command. Simply, what is the maximum number of secure MAC addresses we can have on this particular port? Now with MAC age, let's look at violation right now. Violation, this is the action that's going to be taken if there is a security violation. The default is shutdown. I believe we saw that in show port security interface. Saw it right here next to violation mode. Sing, there it is. That's shutdown. Our other two choices are protect and restrict. And we've been around Cisco certification exams long enough to know that if we have some options like that, we better really know the difference. We're definitely coming back to those, but I want to show you these right now. The default port security, again, it's shut down. And it does exactly what it says it's going to do. The port is placed into error disabled state. Very important that you know that. It's error disabled. Manual intervention is needed by default to reopen that port. So what happens there is you and I, as the network admins, have to fix the problem first and then do a no shut on the port. And with shutdown mode, an SNMP trap message is also generated. Now, I know you may think it sounds silly when I say we have to fix the problem first and then do a no shut on the port. Well, if you do the no shut first, it's going to be fine until the error happens again, which will probably just take a few seconds. Protect mode, it just drops the offending frames and no other action is taken. Our middle ground security mode is restrict, and the non-secure frames are dropped. There's an SNMP trap notification and a syslog message generated, but the port remains open. So if you want that port to remain open, but you want these other notifications, you need to go with restrict. But definitely, I would know what all three of those modes do. So let's see, we've taken a look at violation and maximum. Let's take a look at MAC address here. Okay, so we've got Triple H, I like it, 48-bit MAC address. So we can put a MAC address in there if we want, apparently. And then we have something called sticky. Ew. For some reason, I always just see, a Pepsi being poured into a router or something when they say sticky address. I have no idea why. Anyway, sticky addresses, configure dynamic secure addresses as sticky. We will do a lab on those, but that just means that these are addresses that are dynamically learned, but they are going to be kept on a reload. We'll do a lab with that as well. Let's go ahead and look at our other option here, our aging option. We have static, time, and type. Now, a configured secure address, a statically configured one, as you would expect, is not going to age out, because I can't think of anything that we configure at the command line statically that would age out dynamically. or automatically. It's rare that you're going to want to do that. You may have very specialized situations where you want to enable aging for a configured secure address, but it's not something we do terribly often. Then we have time and type, and we've got the aging time in minutes, and you put anything in from 1 through 1440. So that's how long it would be before a dynamically learned address was actually aged out. And then you have your type, which is absolute and inactivity. The default is absolute, and that just means the clock starts ticking as soon as that address is learned. It doesn't matter how often it's refreshed. Inactivity, of course, the aging is based on the inactivity time period. If we don't hear from that source MAC address for a while, then we're going to flush it out. So this video, what we've done here is just an introductory look at the commands. We're going to go back to every single one of them during a lab and work with them, but I want you to see them all in advance. And what we will do here on the very next video, we're going to have router 1 or host 1 at 172.16.23.111, and then our other host is going to be at 172.16.23.222. We're just going to use that to send some pings and have some different source MAC addresses, that kind of thing. And like I said, we'll see all of these things in action. And we will start with that at the beginning of the very next video. I'll see you there.